She shared her lunch with the quiet man in the corner every day, then discovered who he really was. The fluorescent lights hummed overhead as Maria Rodriguez pushed her cleaning cart down the polished hallway of Meridian Financial Tower. At 52, she had been working the night shift as a janitor for 3 years, ever since her husband Carlos had been laid off from the construction company. The building was usually empty by the time she arrived at 10 p.m., except for the security guards and the occasional executive burning the midnight oil. Maria paused outside the break room on the 34th floor, her weathered hands gripping the handle of her mop bucket. Through the glass door, she could see him again, the same man who had been staying late every night for the past 2 weeks. He sat hunched over a laptop at the small corner table, his shoulders tense with exhaustion. A half-empty coffee cup sat beside him, long since gone cold. She had noticed him that first night, working alone while the rest of the building slept. He was younger than her, maybe in his early 40s, with graying temples and kind eyes behind wire-rimmed glasses. His clothes were simple, khakis and button-down shirts that had seen better days. There was something about his quiet determination that reminded her of Carlos during those long months when he'd spent every evening at the kitchen table, hunched over job applications and rejection letters. Maria knocked gently on the break room door before entering. The man looked up, startled. "Oh, I'm sorry," he said, starting to gather his papers. "I didn't realize it was cleaning time. I can move." No, please," Maria said softly, her accent coloring her words. "You stay. I clean around you, no problem." The man smiled gratefully. "Thank you, I'm David, by the way." "Maria," she replied, beginning to wipe down the counters. "You work very late." David ran a hand through his hair. "Yeah, I've been going through some things, work stuff. It's complicated." Maria nodded knowingly. She had heard that tone before, the weight of worry that settled into a person's voice when the bills were piling up and the solutions seemed impossibly far away. She continued cleaning in comfortable silence, stealing glances at David as he returned to his work. His brow was furrowed in concentration, and she could see the faint lines of stress etched around his eyes. When she finished with the break room, Maria hesitated at the door. "David?" He looked up again. "You eat dinner?" David's expression softened with surprise. No, not yet. I kind of forgot." Maria's heart ached. How many nights had she watched Carlos do the same thing, so consumed with worry that he forgot to take care of himself? Without another word, she reached into her bag and pulled out a container of leftover arroz con pollo. "My husband, he makes too much always," she said, the small lie rolling off her tongue easily. In truth, Carlos had packed just enough for Maria's night shift meal, but David looked like he needed it more than she did. "You take this, okay? Is good. He is very good cook." David's eyes widened. "Oh, I couldn't." "Please," Maria insisted, placing the container on the table. "Is just leftovers. Will go bad if no one eats." David stared at the container for a moment, and Maria could see his throat work as he swallowed hard. "Thank you, Maria. That's very kind of you." As Maria continued her rounds that night, she felt a familiar warmth in her chest, the same feeling she got when she helped her elderly neighbor, Mrs. Chen, carry groceries up 3 flights of stairs, or when she slipped an extra $20 into the collection plate at church despite their own tight budget. Carlos always said she had too big a heart for their small bank account, but Maria believed that kindness was the one thing that cost nothing to give. The next night, David was there again. This time, Maria didn't hesitate. She had asked Carlos to make a little extra dinner, claiming she'd been especially hungry at work lately. When she offered David the container of homemade tamales, he accepted with a grateful smile that made the small deception worthwhile. "How long have you worked here?" David asked as Maria organized her cleaning supplies. 3 years, she replied. "Before, I work at hotel, but this job is better hours. I can take care of my grandson in the daytime while my daughter works." "That's nice," David said. "Family is important." "Sí, very important. You have family?" David's expression grew distant. "My daughter, Sophie, she's 16, lives with her mom in Portland now." He paused. "We don't see each other much anymore." Maria heard the pain in his voice and felt her heart clench. She had seen that same look in her daughter Elena's eyes after her divorce, the guilt and longing that came with missing pieces of your child's life. "Is hard," Maria said simply, "but daughters, they understand more than we think. Love is bigger than distance." David nodded, his eyes bright with unshed tears. "I hope so." As the days turned into weeks, their evening conversations became a routine that Maria treasured. She learned that David was going through a difficult divorce, that he had been demoted at work after taking time off to deal with family issues, and that he was struggling to make ends meet while paying alimony and child support. In return, she shared stories about her family, her dreams for her grandson Miguel's education, and her memories of the small town in Mexico where she had grown up. David never asked why she shared her dinner with him every night, and Maria never offered an explanation beyond her standard too much food excuse. But she could see him gaining weight, could see the color returning to his cheeks, and it made the sacrifice of her own meals feel insignificant. One evening in late November, Maria arrived at work to find the break room empty. David's usual table sat vacant, his chair pushed neatly underneath. A cold knot of worry formed in her stomach. Had something happened to him? Had he been fired? She tried to focus on her work, but throughout the night, she found herself glancing toward the break room hopefully. The next night brought the same disappointment, and the next. By the end of the week, Maria had convinced herself that David must have found a new job, or perhaps moved away to be closer to his daughter. She told herself she should be happy for him, but the empty break room felt like a hole in her routine. 3 weeks passed. Maria had settled back into her solitary evening schedule when James, the security guard, approached her cart. "Hey, Maria," he said, "there's someone here to see you. Says his name is David." Maria's heart jumped. She followed James to the security desk in the lobby where David stood waiting. But something was different about him. Gone were the worn khakis and tired button-downs. He wore a tailored navy suit and polished shoes, and his hair had been freshly cut. He looked successful, confident, like a completely different person. "Maria," David said, his familiar warm smile cutting through her confusion. "I'm so glad you're here. I've been hoping to catch you." "David?" Maria's voice was small with uncertainty. "You look different." David laughed, a sound tinged with embarrassment. "I owe you an explanation and an apology." He gestured toward the seating area near the security desk. "Could we sit for a minute?" Maria nodded, still bewildered. As they settled into the leather chairs, David took a deep breath. "I wasn't entirely honest with you about who I am," he began. "My name is David Meridian." The name hit Maria like a physical blow. Meridian, as in Meridian Financial Tower, as in the company whose name was etched in gold letters above the elevator banks. "I'm the CEO of this company," David continued, his voice gentle but tinged with shame. "Or rather, I was. 3 months ago, I made some poor decisions, personal ones that affected my professional life. The board of directors removed me from my position. I was allowed to work as a consultant while they decided whether to terminate me completely or give me another chance." Maria stared at him, her mind reeling. The man she had been feeding, the man she had worried about, the man she had seen as a kindred spirit struggling to survive. He was the owner of the entire building. "Those nights you saw me," David went on, "I was working on a proposal to save my job, trying to prove that I deserved a second chance. I was at the lowest point of my life. I had lost my family, my position, my self-respect. I was sleeping in the office because I couldn't afford an apartment after the divorce settlement, and I was too ashamed to ask anyone for help." Maria felt heat rise in her cheeks. Had he been laughing at her, pitying the poor janitor who tried to feed the millionaire? David seemed to read her thoughts. "But then you started sharing your dinner with me," he said softly. "Every night, without fail, you brought me food, real food made with love. You asked about my daughter. You listened to my problems without judgment. You treated me like a human being worth caring about." Tears welled up in Maria's eyes. You looked hungry. You looked sad." "I was both," David admitted. "And your kindness, it saved me, Maria. Not just from being hungry, but from forgetting that there was still good in the world. Still people who cared about each other without expecting anything in return." Maria wiped her eyes with the back of her hand. "So what happens now? You have your job back?" David smiled. "Better than that. The board voted to reinstate me as CEO last week. But that's not why I'm here." He reached into his jacket pocket and pulled out an envelope. "I'm here because I wanted to thank you properly, and because I want to offer you something." Maria stared at the envelope, afraid to touch it. "David, you don't owe me anything. Please," he said, pressing it into her hands. "Open it." With trembling fingers, Maria opened the envelope. Inside was a letter on official company letterhead, and clipped to it, a check that made her gasp audibly. The amount had more zeros than she had ever seen on a piece of paper with her name on it. "It's a full scholarship," David explained, his voice thick with emotion. "For your grandson Miguel. Full tuition, room, and board at any university he chooses. The letter explains everything." Maria's hands shook as she read the formal language that promised her grandson's future, the future she had dreamed about but never dared hope for. "But this is too much," she whispered. "The dinners, they were just leftovers. I can't accept this." David leaned forward. "Maria, do you know what those dinners meant to me? They weren't just food, they were hope. They were proof that someone in the world thought I was worth taking care of. They reminded me of who I used to be, who I wanted to be again." He paused, his voice growing stronger. "And the scholarship isn't just a thank you. I want to establish a foundation, the Maria Rodriguez Foundation, to help the children of working families get access to higher education. You'll be on the board if you're willing. We'll help kids like Miguel all over the city." Maria stared at him through her tears. "You want to name it after me?" "After the woman who taught me that true wealth isn't measured in dollars," David said. "It's measured in the kindness we show each other, especially when we have nothing to gain from it." Maria thought about Miguel, about the way his eyes lit up when he talked about becoming a doctor. She thought about all the other children who dreamed big, but lacked opportunity. She thought about the ripple effect of kindness, how feeding one hungry man could somehow lead to feeding the dreams of countless others. "He wants to be a doctor," she said softly. "Then he'll be a doctor," David replied without hesitation. Maria looked up at this man who had come into her life as a stranger in need and was leaving it as something much more, a friend, a reminder that the world was smaller and more connected than it seemed. "There's one more thing," David said, reaching for another envelope. "I'm promoting you to Director of Facilities for the entire building. It comes with a significant raise and full benefits for your entire family. But more importantly, it comes with my personal guarantee that you'll never have to choose between feeding your family and helping someone else ever again." Maria laughed through her tears, a sound of pure joy that echoed through the marble lobby. "But I don't know how to be a director." "You know how to take care of people," David said. "Everything else can be learned. Besides, you'll have the best boss in the city." As Maria sat there, holding her grandson's future in her hands, she thought about the chain of small choices that had led to this moment. The choice to share her dinner with a stranger. The choice to offer kindness without expecting anything in return. The choice to see another person's humanity instead of their circumstances. "Thank you," she whispered, but the words felt inadequate for the magnitude of what was happening. David stood up and extended his hand to help her from her chair. "No, Maria, thank you for reminding me that sometimes the smallest acts of love create the biggest miracles." As they walked toward the elevator together, the former janitor and the CEO, the woman who had given and the man who had received, Maria realized that the most beautiful thing about kindness was how it multiplied. She had shared her dinner with one person, and now that generosity would echo through generations of children who would get chances they might never have had otherwise. "You know," David said as they waited for the elevator, "there's something else I want you to know. During those weeks when you fed me, I watched how you treated everyone in this building. The security guards, the other cleaning staff, even the occasional late-working executive. You spoke to everyone with the same respect, the same genuine care. That's when I knew this wasn't just charity for the sad man in the corner. This is who you are." Maria felt tears prick her eyes again. She had never thought anyone noticed those small interactions, those brief moments of connection that made her long nights feel less solitary. The elevator doors opened and Maria stepped inside, no longer just the woman who cleaned the building, but the woman who had helped clean a man's soul, and in doing so, had changed both their lives forever. 6 months later, Maria stood in her new office on the 28th floor, looking out at the city she had served from the shadows for so many years. On her desk sat a framed photo of Miguel in his cap and gown from high school graduation, acceptance letters to 3 different universities spread out beside it. Next to that sat another photo, David with his arm around his daughter Sophie, during her recent visit to the city, both of them smiling with the easy happiness of a relationship rebuilt. The Maria Rodriguez Foundation had already awarded its first round of scholarships to 15 deserving students. Maria had personally reviewed every application, looking for the hunger in their eyes that reminded her of Miguel, the determination that reminded her of herself. That morning, she had received a letter from one of the scholarship recipients, a young girl named Anna, whose mother worked 3 jobs to support her family. The letter was written in careful cursive on notebook paper. "Dear Mrs. Rodriguez, because of you, I get to study engineering. My mama cries happy tears every day. She says angels don't always have wings. Sometimes they just have kind hearts. Thank you for being our angel." Maria had kept that letter close to her heart all day, remembering her own mother's calloused hands and tired eyes, remembering the dreams that had seemed impossibly distant when she was Anna's age. Now, through some miraculous turn of events, she was the one making impossible dreams possible for others. Carlos often joked that Maria had always been too generous for her own good, but now he understood that generosity was never too much when it came from a place of genuine love. The foundation was expanding, David had told her just yesterday. They were looking at partnering with schools across 3 states, creating mentorship programs, building a network of opportunity that would touch thousands of lives. As she prepared to leave for the day, no more night shifts, no more choosing between her own meal and someone else's need, Maria reflected on the mysterious mathematics of kindness. She had given away a few containers of leftover rice and beans, and the universe had given her back more than she had ever dreamed possible. But the greatest gift wasn't the money or the job or even Miguel's scholarship. It was the confirmation of something she had always believed but had never seen proven so dramatically, that love shared is love multiplied, that kindness given freely always finds its way back home, and that sometimes the smallest gesture can change everything. Sometimes the meals we share with strangers feed more than just hungry bodies, they feed hungry souls. If this story touched your heart, please like, subscribe, and join us for more soulful stories that remind us of the extraordinary power of ordinary kindness.